Dyslexic All Day is a pilot program that we launched this year. It's something that isn't being done. It's answering the need of what do these kids do outside of tutoring? What happens during the other 30 hours of the school week when they're in class struggling with reading and writing? What happens when they aren't able to memorize their multiplication tables? How do we facilitate their big leaps in thinking? How do we encourage their larger contextual thinking?
Things that make me happy are baseball, video games, and science. Math and reading give me lots of frustration. My dyslexia is tiring and frustrating.
Luckily, we work in a program called Expeditionary Learning, and that program allows our kids to take those big steps in thinking, those big leaps in understanding, the connecting of disparate thoughts into new understanding. We don't need to modify EL to work well for our dyslexic learners. And if you could speak to that about why you think EL is a strong match for a program like ours.
Sure. Well, the EL model is so structured, and there's a lot of predictability in the structure, but there's also a lot of freedom that I think works well for any type of out of the ordinary or out of the box learner, which is really every single learner. So there are lots of protocols, lots of practices that are tailored to get every single student engaged, no matter what background information that student's coming in with, or what preferred learning style that student has experienced, or just training that they've had. And so when you bring the EL model into the classroom, suddenly students are investigators and they become experts and they're researchers and they're writers. So if we're talking about research, they would be getting out of the classroom, going into the field, which I know you guys have done a bunch here in very different settings, and talking to actual experts. What a great way to research if you don't love sitting in front of a textbook and reading and writing all the time. So there's all these different entry points for all different types of learners. And that's not to say that they don't spend a significant amount of time reading and writing, but then that reading and that writing is also scaffolded and structured so that kids know how to approach a text or approach a writing assignment and make it better and revise it and critique it within a certain structure or framework.
I am good at math and video games. Writing and reading are hard for me. I get frustrated with dyslexia sometimes because I fall behind.
Yeah. So we have learned so much this year in this program. We have learned what works. We've learned that there are a whole lot of things that we don't know. We've learned that these kids, most importantly, need to learn self-advocacy.
Lacrosse, football, and math are my strengths. They make me feel happy. I feel a lot of frustration when I am reading and writing. My dyslexia gives me good hand-eye coordination.
Becoming metacognitive, or becoming aware of one's own thoughts and thinking process, is a huge piece of the EL puzzle. And I've just never seen it so intentionally done in any other model or classroom that I personally have been in.
The idea of giving them a window into their brains but out into the world. That people thrive, that people are smart, that people achieve because of their dyslexic minds. And turning it around to say, we're not just helping them to read and write to their ability, being done when they're done, but we're helping them to understand how their brain works, what they're challenged with, what they're able to let go, but also what to hold up and push forward. Our biggest goal with this is not just to help our handful of dyslexic learners. We're going to grow our program. Our goal is to scale this up so what we're doing here can be used by a student in Iowa, by a parent in Florida, by a desperate teacher in California. The work that we're doing with these kids is to try to find a scalable model that is easily picked up and carried on independent of a school structure that supports dyslexic learners the way we do.
I'm really good at video games, math, and closing circle. Those things make me feel happy, smart, and excited. I feel scared, confused, and a little bit angry when I have to do expedition work and interviews. My dyslexia is fun and frustrating.
Next year is about building capacity. We want to move from a table full of thinkers on this subject to a building, a permanent facility where we can start pulling in exemplary staff. We can start pulling in more of a resource team to support these learners, where we can pull in a technology team to think about scalability. That's what next year is about, is moving from an idea to implementation, and from implementation at our school level into looking at scalability. That's where we're heading.
How is this school different than the school you went to last year?
It's a lot much more